Is this channel tutor is Ukrainian, and I would encourage you to use the headsets because the present audience might switch from Ukrainian to English back and forth. So channel 1 is Ukrainian, channel 2 is English. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to open today's event, and let me greet members of the offline and online audience, because today we're gonna learn the name of the Ukrainian citizen to be awarded Nansen Refugee Award in the European region. It is my utmost pleasure to invite Ms. Noel Calhoun, Deputy Representative of the High Commissioner for Refugees in Ukraine.
Добрий день. We're here today to present the European winner of UNHCR's Nansen Refugee Award. UNHCR established this award 66 years ago to honor the extraordinary work that is done by individuals and by organizations to protect the rights of refugees, stateless persons, and the internally displaced. The award is in the name of Nansen, that's Fridtjof Nansen, who is from Norway, and who was the very first High Commissioner for Refugees of the League of Nations. Now, there has been only one Nansen Award winner in the past who was a citizen of Ukraine, and that was Mr. Mustafa Jamilov, who was recognized in 1998 for all of his tremendous work in helping the returning Crimean Tatars to get their citizenship. And ever since then, he has continued to work tirelessly to protect the rights of the people in his community. Now, over this last weekend, I was very touched, as maybe you were as well, to see the outpouring of tributes in honor of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a woman who dedicated so many years of her life to protecting human rights, and a woman who also has a family link with Ukraine. And so I think it's especially fitting that today, Monday morning, when UNHCR is announcing the 6 regional winners of the Nansen Refugee Award. All of the winners are women. All of the winners are women. And to me, that's a sign that there is a next generation of women who is going to take forward the important work for the protection of rights. Now, in 2020, the European regional winner of the Nansen Refugee Award is Ms. Titiana Baransova. Now, let me say a few words about Ms. Baransova, and I think you'll understand why the selection committee has chosen her. First of all, working in Luhansk, in the east of the country, Ms. Baransova founded an organization called Unhcr that advocated for the protection of the rights of persons with disabilities in Ukraine. And then came 2014, when the conflict broke out, and Ms. Baransova had to flee with her family. It's hard for any person to flee their homes. It's even harder when you're in a wheelchair. But as soon as Ms. Baransova was able to get out, she didn't stop. There were other people with disabilities who were calling her to try to escape a war zone in a wheelchair. And she set up a hotline that provided a resource to identify people who needed to leave and to bring them to safety. As a result of this, thousands of people were saved. They reached a place of safety. And as soon as they reached that place of safety, then begins the next phase of equally hard work, which is to restart a new life, to find a home, to find a job, to get your kids into school, to make sure all of your paperwork is in order. And again, Ms. Baransova didn't stop. She's been helping, together with her team, thousands and thousands of people to rebuild their lives after displacement. Now, in Ukraine, Ms. Baransova is a well-known advocate for the rights of persons with disabilities. Earlier this year, she was appointed as a government commissioner for the rights of persons with disabilities. Today, her work gets the recognition it deserves at the European level. And to help you know a little bit more about Ms. Baransova, we'd like to share with you a short film about her work.
Мене звати Титяна Барансова.
My name's Titiana Baransova. The war erupted. Sirens were howling madly. I knew back in 2014, I knew some people were trapped in their homes, and I had a responsibility at that moment. We had to get people out. If a healthy person doesn't know where to go, then how can the blind person know where to run? Where will the hearing impaired run? They have hands and feet if no one can understand them.
Coming to this event, I asked my colleague, who's known Ms. Baransova for a while, what's the most important thing that we should know about Titiana Baransova? And there was a simple answer. It's the heart. The woman has a huge, huge heart for others, and she has the energy and the dedication to help them to solve problems. And so it is truly an honor and a pleasure to introduce you, present you to Ms. Titiana Baransova. So, on behalf of UNHCR, I would like to present to you, Titiana, this diploma, recognizing you as European regional winner of the Nansen Refugee Award.
Пані Тетяно, вітаємо вас від щирого.
Miss Titiana, we do congratulate you on this event. So this is a true recognition, and this is really very valuable. So another bouquet for you, and I'd like to invite you. I'd like to pass the floor to you right now. I can hold the bouquet, so please, just for a couple of words to be spoken. Thank you. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful to UNHCR, to the High Commissioner of Refugees. Thank you for actually, starting from 2014 and up to now, all these 6 years, you've been together with us every day through Viber, despite, it doesn't matter who calls, who gives a phone call. I know we have a whole group of us where we can usually get some advice and support always. It's very important to be that supportive. I'm so grateful to all people, to each of you, to every person who, in that difficult time, at that specific moment, everyone who gave us a call, who were just telling us to go through that, providing support, any kind of support, of course, to organizations which were our partners, and so many efforts were there, so many efforts were made. So, and this is the National Assembly of Disabled People of Ukraine and the Samaritans Union of Ukraine, and many other organizations, of course. And I'm so grateful to Valery Sushkevich for staying close for all this time. This is so many people, it's a whole circle. I'm not alone in this. And this award, it reflects, it's just, it accumulates efforts of so many people. Not just mine. What I see all these destinies. I see so many people standing behind this award. And these people do still require our support. They ask for it. And it's really hard time right now. It's really hard. And we face this situation, face this challenge related to pandemic. We have COVID-19 right now, so many other challenges. We have different kinds of disasters, unemployment. Our community is coming through a very difficult time today. And sometimes it's really a hard burden. So many people do have different problems. But when we work with IDPs and refugees, sometimes this situation, this aspect goes a little bit to the other side. So we lose the focus because not 3 years, not 6 years, it's not... I can't say that lives of people improved, but these people do require our help. They want their lives to be improved. And in the community itself, in the community of people who do have the IDP status or refugee status, we have categories of people who require even more support. People with disabilities, mothers with their children, elderly. And we have a category when we have, for example, an elderly person with certain disability. Imagine a vulnerable one, a mother with a small child and a child with a disability. So we have so many small categories vulnerable. Absolutely vulnerable. So with the start of the pandemic, we started talking about this, and the situation has become even more difficult. I just talk about those people who live close to the conflict line, and they have to tackle so many challenges just to have this COVID test made, or just to cross the line. So they face so many problems when they even cannot use specialized infrastructure to get elsewhere. So a lot of challenges for them. They have to face it. And I do know that Fridtjof Nansen, he was a very optimistic person, very light-hearted person. So I truly think that this is very positive and very optimistic award. It must bring us hope, like a candle, like a lantern. So a certain joy. We know that the person who founded this award, we must understand that it doesn't matter what environment we live in any kind of situation, we must still think about people. We must be people-centered. We must think about people, value people's lives, of course, and think, what else can we do to protect one's rights? To support one's rights. So again, I'm so grateful. My profound gratitude to all of you who supports IDPs, refugees, and I'm so glad that I can work for you. And I do hope that we will continue working together. Thank you. Thank you for this work. Thank you, Ms. Titiana. Thank you so much for your fiery speech, for your fiery heart. And today, I want to say that we have very distinguished guests, and they also want to congratulate you as well with this recognition, with this victory. And I'd like to pass the floor, who'll be the first one, with congratulations, the Ambassador of Norway to Ukraine, Erik Svedal. Because the Norwegian embassy and Swiss embassy, they, together with the Unhcr, they actually they founded this award many years ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's a great pleasure for me as Ambassador of Norway to Ukraine to congratulate this year's regional winner for Europe of the Nansen Refugee Award for 2020, Titiana Baransova. The award is actually one of the most prestigious humanitarian honors one can receive, and the most important related to the protection of refugees. It is named after the famous Norwegian polar explorer, scientist, diplomat, and humanitarian, Fridtjof Nansen. He was born in Norway in 1861, and he is best known for his visionary work on behalf of refugees. As Europe struggled to rebuild after World War I, he directed the League of Nations' first major humanitarian operation, the repatriation of 450,000 prisoners of war. He served as the League of Nations' first High Commissioner for Refugees from 1920 to 30, helping hundreds of thousands of refugees to return home. Nansen saw that one of the biggest problems facing refugees was the lack of internationally recognized identification papers. And his solution, which came to be known as the Nansen passport, was the first legal instrument for the international protection of refugees. In 1922, Nansen was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work, and he used half of the prize money to establish agricultural stations in Ukraine, and the other half was allotted to Greek refugees in Turkey. Long after his death in 1930, millions continued to remember him as the foremost exponent of human compassion. And in 1954, the UNHCR established the Nansen Refugee Award in his honor. The UNHCR Nansen Refugee Award is awarded annually by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees to an individual, group, or organization in recognition of outstanding service to the cause of refugees, displaced, or stateless people. This year's regional winner for Europe, Titiana Baransova, is herself displaced with her family because of the armed conflict in eastern Ukraine. Her NGO, originally based in Luhansk Oblast, has adapted to focus its activities on the promotion of rights of IDPs and displaced children and youth with disabilities. And in a vote of confidence in her abilities and experience, the Ukrainian government earlier this year appointed her as Government Commissioner for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Through her activism beyond the call of duty, her courage, and her compassion, Titiana Baransova is certainly a worthy winner of the Nansen Refugee Award for Europe 2020. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the UNHCR and the Nansen Refugee Award Selection Committee for recognizing Titiana's efforts. By honoring Titiana's work, we are reminded not only of the vulnerability of disabled people in conflict and displacement, but also of the continuing armed conflict and suffering in eastern Ukraine. I would also, of course, like to thank you, Titiana, for the important work which you do for vulnerable people in need. Вітаю. Thank you.
Дуже дякуємо вам.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, I would also like to invite His Excellency Claude Wild, Ambassador of the Swiss Confederation to Ukraine and Moldova.
Good day, everybody, dear panelists, dear Titiana. First, let me warmly congratulate you, Titiana Baransova, on winning the 2020 European Nansen Refugee Award. What you and your NGO are doing is extremely important for the people that are confronted with the reality that this spring Ukraine entered the 7th year of occupation of Crimea and of armed conflict in Donbass. According to the latest data, currently 1.4 million Ukrainians are registered as being internally displaced. The occupation of Crimea and the armed conflict in Donbass, coupled with the COVID-19 pandemic, continues to bring human rights and humanitarian challenges throughout the country. This is especially true for the directly affected population, including IDPs. Across the world, there are nowadays some 50 million internally displaced persons as a result of conflict and violence or natural disaster. Out of this 50 millions, 45 millions are displaced because of man-made disasters of conflict and violence, and 5 millions are displaced because of natural disaster. These millions are not just figures. Behind these figures are real lives, stories of sufferings of people who became victims of conflict consequences which are beyond their control. This reality requires continued joint efforts by the international community in assisting countries facing internal displacement to meet immediate needs of IDPs, but also in finding durable solutions. And you're an actor of it, and we must support you. Talking about the causes of internal displacements, we see that in today's world, peace is at risk in many places. And the Geneva Conventions, born in Switzerland in 1949, have not lost their significance. In fact, they are more significant than ever. Indeed, the Geneva Conventions contain many provisions concerning the prevention of displacement and the protection of IDPs. They continue to be important today, especially in a country like Ukraine, with the war situation in Donbass and the occupation in Crimea. The fundamental humanitarian principle of humanity, impartiality, neutrality, and independence enshrined in the Geneva Conventions also guides the Swiss foreign policy and the work of the Swiss humanitarian aid. Since 2014, Switzerland has provided humanitarian assistance to the conflict-affected Ukrainian population on both sides of the contact line. We are also involved in the Donbass peace process at the multilateral level, for example, in the negotiations of the trilateral contact group. We have also helped to set up some very specific projects benefiting directly IDPs in Ukraine. For example, in order to contribute to capacity building in IDP policy, Switzerland has facilitated in 2019 an exchange of experience between the concerned ministries and cities councils in Ukraine and Georgia, because Georgia too had, before Ukraine, experienced the difficult challenge of having IDPs, of course. As well, Switzerland, on a more local level, continues to support a very nice project which is called Futistar. These are football academies in Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. These academies were founded by an IDP and in order to engage with children of IDPs and with local children of these cities. I've visited myself, and here we could see how an IDP could really bring new life in localities that were also affected by the conflict. Referring to that latest example, let me conclude by emphasizing the importance of local actors. Local actors, like you, play a key role in ensuring that people can continue to exercise their right, access basic services, and that the needs and vulnerabilities of communities affected by displacements are acknowledged and addressed. It is typically at the local level where practical solutions are found. It is also at the local level that innovative approaches emerge where public administrations, civil society organizations, and individuals collaborate to develop initiatives and make sure that voices of those in need are heard. Speaking of individuals that make a difference at the local level, today we honor a highly dedicated Ukrainian woman, a civil society representative who, despite all challenges, proactively stands up for the right of the most vulnerable. Mrs. Baransova, you deserve our deepest admiration and respect for what you and your NGO is doing. Thank you.
Дуже дякую, дуже.
Thank you, Your Excellency. As I've already mentioned earlier, we have an other esteemed guests who are here to congratulate Ms. Baransova on recognition of her contribution. Therefore, now I would like to ask Mr. Shushkevich, Presidential Commissioner for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Head of the National Assembly of Ukraine of People with Disabilities, Mr. Shushkevich. Thank you. Well, first of all, let me congratulate my dear colleague Titiana Baransova to express my joy on this award. Indeed, I am very moved by the words of our colleagues, of our esteemed friends from UNHCR. Noel, let me thank you for having seen our heroine, for the High Commission, your team could notice the important contribution of Ms. Baransova and her team in our common cause. I would also like to recognize the words of their excellencies, ambassadors of Norway and the Swiss Federation, and I was very happy to hear that they were not just mere words, but words imbibed with deep understanding and personal experience. You understand the tragedy related to the occupation and the conflict. You can see what's going on with the IDPs of Crimean extraction. For us all, it is important that people who work like Titiana Baransova and her team, their daily effort, both now and then, on the contact line, whatever she's doing here in Kiev, communicating inter alia with UNHCR mission, and communicating to the parliament, to the government of Ukraine, to the ministries of Ukraine. This all makes it an important work. I made friends with Tatiana before the tragedy of Crimea and the east of Ukraine. I've known her for many years. She can't even remember. Well, 2003, that's the year that our friendship dates back to. Many decisions taken by the government, even before she was appointed, government's commissioners were initiated by her when she worked for the rights of persons with disabilities suffering. So Ukraine, let me submit, a peaceful nation, had not known problems related to refugees or IDPs, and Fridtjof Nansen, the great man, the first human rights commissioner, was the first to take very important steps to protect the rights of refugees in the world.
So I look at Tatiana, I can see how much she did for that. I know how many efforts she made. So an interesting situation. Many years ago, when Fridtjof Nansen, he already saw Ukraine as one of his projects. And then he already recognized Ukraine as a country which requires support and which deserves support. And today we have this event related so tightly, so closely to our Ms. Baransova. So we just have this historical parallel drawn with this prominent Norwegian diplomat and humanitarian supporter. So I'm really grateful to you for giving this award to Ms. Titiana. This is not just a permanent award, like we gave it today and that's it. So the thing is that your award, your recognition, the recognition of UNHCR, this award will allow us to understand more, understand Ms. Titiana more as an activist, as a leader who works and continues working with people, directly with people who do require this support. So in fact, you created another basic fundamental factor for her. You created this impetus for her to, let's say, motivate herself to do even more. So quite often our team does feel this lack of understanding, lack of motivation when we come closer to very difficult problems. But these problems must be solved because these are the problems of people who did suffer. They have the status of refugees, even those who don't have the status of refugees, but they still have to get it. This is also a problem, so still people who are not granted the status. This is something that she works with. I'd like to express my gratitude to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, Tatiana, congratulations. Congratulations, because you do have this award today. Let me share this joy with you, with all of you, and I'd like to wish you just a huge motivation for you to be understood, as you should be understood, for you to do it easier, most smoothly, and do even more. And of course, I'd like you to stay healthy, and to all of us, what I really like to wish, peace. This is something I really want us to have today. Peace. Thank you, Valery. Thank you for such warm words and for recognizing the support given to Titiana Baransova. And of course, we have so many people who would like to pass their greetings as well, because she has so many friends, so many people do know her, and so many IDPs living all around Ukraine. And right now, I'd like to announce a small video with warm words and congratulations, even some more of that, so please. So, the regional winner of the Nansen Award, Titiana Baransova, she's the governmental commissioner on refugees' rights. So, Titiana, my friend, congratulations on that deserved award. So, you are the person with wonderfully kind, unbelievably kind heart, big heart. I know how you worry about all of us. You support all of us. You save us. You save us. You give us your strength. You give us your love and your warmth to everyone who needs it. Once you help me as well to continue my life, to live, to go through that. And I'm so proud to have such a friend like you. So I want the God to send his mercy to you, to give strength, patience, to give you health. So I do love you so much. So I'm so happy that this truly titanic work is recognized globally today. Thanks to you, Ukraine has become a regional winner, European winner with Nansen Award. So today you are the governmental commissioner. You are Ukrainian citizen, and you are the winner of Nansen Award. So this award goes only to people whose contribution to the solution of refugees problem solution is huge. I'm so grateful that 20 years of your work, of your humanitarian work, because you do work with people with disabilities, first of all, this is your priority. I congratulate you on this recognition, on this victory, because you give people motivation, you give people this strength to believe that they can do everything. Please do not stop. So Titiana, congratulations. It's truly, truly something you deserve, because it clearly demonstrates how professional you are. I really want you to continue this wonderful work. So I want all your dreams to come true and have all of your most ambitious plans to be implemented. So Titiana is the person who can support people who are in very difficult conditions, who find themselves in very difficult conditions, and I really want to congratulate Ms. Baransova and just to tell that I am so proud that I know you. So we consider this award to be truly deserved. This is a truly deserved victory, truly deserved award. And we do hope that Ukrainian government will draw more attention and focus on people's special needs, to IDPs' needs, and consolidate efforts together with the civic society. So congratulations.
Привіт, Caroline Vangavai, and I hear you won an award, and that's really, really wonderful. You deserve it. You work very hard. I'm so happy we had 2 years to work. I learned about Ukraine. I'm still learning about Ukraine. And one of these days, maybe we'll be back together. Stay healthy, stay well, stay high to everyone. I'm proud you have the award. До свидания, aloha.
So you're such a fragile, beautiful woman, and you deserve for this recognition. You deserve it. You deserve this recognition. You did so much, so many results in supporting people with disabilities and IDPs and refugees. We remember how much support you did provide to us and our team when we opened our center. So we really want you to have all the best, to stay healthy, to be creative and energetic, for you to be to have enough energy for absolutely everything, all the projects really want. As a mother, I feel so calm that right now we have such a wonderful governmental commissioner who will protect our rights, because I know that in our country, rights of children with disabilities will be protected and observed. I want you to have love and health and strength. Congratulations. So many wonderful words we have today from different parts of Ukraine, but also from abroad, from Hawaii even. So this is truly global recognition. So dear colleagues, we do have a couple of questions, from journalists, and well, we have many of them, but we would like to ask maybe a couple of them. We'll bring it to Ms. Titiana. So Titiana, representatives of the embassies, and I think Mr. Sushkevich will get one. So, Ms. Titiana, you will get your first question right now, so please do tell how exactly did the situation, the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, how did it influence the life of IDPs, including people with disabilities, and the functioning of your organization as well? How did it affect function? Yes, it was a huge impact, of course. You know that people with disabilities and IDPs, they're very vulnerable, because even if you want to rent an apartment, so it's really very difficult, because you cannot find proper environment, you cannot find proper infrastructure. The majority of my team, my husband, my son, we all know how it is, and people mostly they try to hire an apartment somewhere in the suburbs if they can pay, because people lost their jobs in 99% of cases, because they tried to find something cheap, some apartments far from the trade centers and so on, something very inconvenient. And when a person tries to adapt to certain logistic difficulties, when they try to get to the pharmacies, if they can get to it in the wheelchairs or to the shops, pandemic changed our lives drastically, if we just talk about this only, yes? But my family, for example, can come to a big trade center with an elevator, just to go somewhere where the pharmacy is and where we have the supermarket. And during the pandemic, when we had the lockdown, everything was closed. So the shop was working, the supermarket was working, but elevator was off. And for people with disabilities, it was a big problem. So we got used to that. We had certain schemes, we had certain routes, and it instantly became inaccessible. So we had the situation when we had problems when the elevators just went off when we came there, and it was a problem, and we were the only people, for example, who couldn't get down, and of course something related to the pharmacy. So you can see that I'm moving in a wheelchair, and we all talk that we need to let's say, stick to these safety rules today, but my hands are always on the wheels. It's objective. So people throw their masks everywhere, and we have this extra risk factor. And it's not just for people moving in wheelchairs. I'll mention people who have visual impairment, who are blind, and many women wrote me some letters with small children, and they told me that they simply need to have some escort to the supermarket, to the hospital, to the pharmacy, because they cannot go there alone. And even neighbors were so afraid at that moment that... But when you need to keep distance, how can you escort a person? And therefore you have no opportunity as a blind person without an escort to go to a pharmacy. So the problem with people who do have audio impairments when it comes to lockdown, again, how can you explain a person, how can a person explain how he or she feels without a special interpreter to a family doctor, to a practitioner? So we cannot even have this connection between doctor and a patient, and doctors are so busy.
Of course, what we saw was, 40 body temperature or lung, and the ambulance doesn't know how to transport this person. Only the closest relatives could help. We had the situation in my family. The husband was diagnosed with pneumonia but couldn't be hospitalized. It was very difficult. So persons with disabilities are vulnerable because of their somatic situation. They are automatically in the risk group no matter the age. And of course, a person with disabilities who is an aged person is even more vulnerable. Plus, the soft infrastructure is not ready, let me submit. Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you. I hope that our colleagues have now seen better the challenges faced by persons with disabilities, IDPs with disabilities. Mr. Sushkevich, here is a question for you from the journalists. Could you give us the numbers of IDPs from Crimea or east of Ukraine who are with disabilities? Thank you for the question. Well, the most recent data, almost 51, maybe 51,500 of them. I mentioned earlier the contribution of our winner today, Titiana Baransova. So I'll say again, it is important that the government, the state recognizes the challenge of IDPs with disabilities. Well, all IDPs find it difficult because of the war, because of the fact they had to flee their homes. But when such persons are also suffering from various disabilities, this becomes a real problem. Now, a person bound to a wheelchair or cerebral palsy or 100% vision impaired, or a family with 2 or 3 persons with disabilities or a child with disabilities. There's a significant number of people who became well impaired with disability all of a sudden because of shelling. People are amputated, their backbones impaired. This is an extraordinary situation. And now imagine this person is also displaced. They are all very critical issues that we've talked on many occasions with the government, and we're yet to find good practical solutions to these issues, in spite of many things done addressing the needs of persons with disabilities, children with disabilities. I can still recall the times when a person who became disabled because of the war could not be given the status of a person affected by the war. No, some people in the government were brave enough to say that this is not a domestic trauma, and this 1,000 persons are the ones who the ministries, public officials, state administrations should see even better, because they are people who didn't choose to be displaced. They were forced in displacement, and they had problems back home, but now displaced, they face even more problems. In my assessment, this is one of the priority issues for the government, for the state of Ukraine. And one other factor affecting persons with disabilities, something that we've also discussed with Titiana here, the war takes cuts into the significant amount of the GDP. The government of Ukraine is limited in its ability to use the available GDP in order to solve problems related to IDPs and IDPs with disabilities. We need financial support, economic support, which is limited because a lot of what we have is spent with a view to defending the country from occupation, from the war. And many people who are left behind in the occupied territories and those who've moved to Ukraine mean that there's a lot to be done by us all, by Ukraine. And once again, I would like to say thank you to the UNHCR for this high recognition of Tatiana. Thank you, Mr. Sushkevich, for your very informative response. And the last two questions to their excellencies, Ms. Svetla and Wild. What can you say about the effect that pandemics has had on your humanitarian assistance and in particular assistance provided by your governments to Ukraine?
Of course, the COVID pandemic has had an influence on humanitarian assistance, not only in Ukraine, but globally. It has made complicated humanitarian projects more complicated, more time-consuming, more expensive. The efforts of the international community to provide humanitarian assistance needs to be better coordinated, and from a Norwegian point of view, we think that the UN is in the position to provide this coordination And Norway was one of the countries that took initiative to provide a multi-donor task fund administered by the UN to coordinate efforts. From a Norwegian point of view, of course, the COVID pandemic means that our funds have had to be reallocated. We need to provide also more funds from for coping with the pandemic, which affects the budget that we give to other projects. But we make an effort to be flexible to our partners on the ground, give them more time, more and more resources to cope with this extra challenge.
Дуже дякую, пане Еріку.
Thank you, Mr. Eric. And
I can give you 3 examples on how we reacted on our current program we have in Ukraine. We have a cooperation program also with humanitarian actions of 27 million per year that we spend in Ukraine. And the first challenge when the COVID pandemic came was because everything was slowing down or we couldn't meet the people, so how can we engineer the program so that we make it COVID compatible so that we continue under the new circumstance? That was the first challenge. So maybe 3 examples, like I spoke about the fact that we bring humanitarian assistance as a country to both sides, to Ukrainians on both sides of the contact line. So now the problem is Ukraine is red zone, so our experts who are coming, they must, once they go back from Ukraine, be in quarantine, which is a big obstacle for traveling and doing stuff. But we said for humanitarian activities, we take it as a burden, we double the teams, so they come. They were here last week on the governmental side, but also in Luhansk and Donetsk, to recognize for the next convoy of, I think, 25 lorries that will come in mid-October to deliver water treatment, which water is so important in the Donbass on both sides, and also deliveries to hospitals. So despite COVID, we tried to continue as normal as possible and not use the COVID excuse for stopping doing things. Another example maybe that is smaller, but I think was important for Ukrainian students. You might remember in June this year, there was this story about ZNEO. I learned what it is. ZNEO, the exam for those who finish the secondary school, which is so important because it's really independent exam to get the guarantee to enter into university. And this exam was not sure to be held because of COVID fear. And so together with UNICEF and the Ministry of Education, the Embassy of Switzerland immediately reacted when we saw how parents were not happy with the risk of losing ZNEO. So we made sure that all over Ukraine, in every class where these exams should be held, there is all the sanitary materials, so this cannot be an excuse for not having ZNEO. It's so important for students to be able to be treated fairly when they go to university. They are the future of the country, and it was a little action, but it was a very important one. And third action was actually an innovation. You remember in March, the whole of Western Europe was very affected, especially northern Italy was about to collapse. And so we said, what can we do? High speed, high risk. That is launching new projects that don't need a phase of 3 months of first reflection, but just going and doing things. And on an open source with our technical institute, we decided to create, they decided to create a low-cost lung ventilator, because lung ventilators were missing all over the world. And it's not the high sophisticated, but it is low cost and the one the patient needs before he is really seriously affected. And they started that project, and then suddenly we realized that we don't have an industry in Switzerland to produce them once they are ready. And I said to them, but there are plenty of excellent engineers in Ukraine with big state companies. I'm sure I can find a partner that could produce this. And that's what we did. And now we have new prototypes that are finished, that were actually created together with Ukrainian engineers and Swiss engineers. And we have an agreement that we will pay for the production line, so that somewhere in the world, for those who need this lung ventilator, we can produce it industrially. So this was an innovation project out of the COVID pandemic.
Дуже дякую вам, вельми.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. Thank you so much for this information, and we are so grateful for this wonderful and truly great support that you do provide to Ukrainian, to IDPs particularly. So, dear colleagues, thank you so much for staying with us at this press conference, at this award ceremony. So, Titiana, again, huge gratitude to you, and my congratulations on this well-deserved award. So do have a nice day and stay healthy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.